Fix. Hi and welcome back. Now so far we have seen how we can use Python in visuals and we explored various options to display different kinds of insights, so statistical insights using Matplotlib and Seaborn. However, there are two other ways you can use Python in Power BI. The second one I'd like to show you now is to apply Python within the query editor. So when you transform your data, it might be the case that the specific transformation you want to use is not available by default. And then you can always refer to Python to do your transformations on the data. So let's do that. At first, let's actually go on the internet. And in my case, I go to here yahoofinance.com because I can download here stock price data for Apple. So you can use the same data I use. You find it in resource section. You can download latest data from this site for free, super practical and download option, or you can use any other kind of stock you want to refer to. So I already downloaded and saved it in my folder. So I can go to Power BI and go to get data in here and say I'd like to import a CC file because the download itself is a CC file. I can take this option and refer to Apple here. So if I click this and go to open, then you see that the navigator window appears here and I can see some information here about the data itself. So the delimiter here should actually be a comma, that's fine. Western region is also fine. So let me go to transform, go to transform data. And then the Power Query Editor appears here. First, now for me, I can immediately spot there's an issue here. And this is due to my local settings. So I would actually have to make sure that my decimal separator is referred to the dot, which is a default one. So for you, it might not be the case and the data looks already fine. If it's like for me, where actually a comma is a separator in my regional settings, I need to go back to promote headers to the step before and make sure here that when the conversion happens, it's not by default. If I remove this change type here, I want to make sure that here this is decimal number. When I convert this to an American field, I go to using local and make sure that I use US settings. So if I take this option and say I'd like to go in here and say I want to convert this into decimal number. So this number, I specify here that I would like to go not with the German setting for me. I'd like to go with the US setting. So if I search for English, just go there and should be at the bottom somewhere in the United States. So if I take this option, you see that there the dot is the thousands of the comma separator and that's I need to click OK. And now I can see that I got the correct numbers here with a comma for me. It's just a regional setting issue which I have when I import the data, you might not have it. Otherwise, you know how to fix it. So you can go in here and using local option, which is pretty powerful, especially if you are working on international data because there's often or almost always an issue regarding the dot and the comma and you can easily fix those issues using local option. So far, so good. And I would have to do the same for the other ones, but in my case, I don't need the other columns. So I can take the open till the no, I hope my shift key and I right click and I say I'd like to remove the columns and do the same for the last two ones. So for the adjusted close and also for the volume. In my case, I only go with the close. You can all refer to another call if you want. Let me remove this remove columns. OK. So we got our date in here as well as our close price. So far, so good. And now I can use either one of the transformations I have as a set. You're familiar with those which are on top here. So a lot of transformations. You can either write your own custom M code if you want, if you go to the advanced editor. But if you don't know the M language or you simply do not find what you need, you can go on a transform. And if you take this option, you should see under the script area here, run our scripts or run Python scripts. In our case, we would like to go with second option here, run Python scripts. So you can take this option. And then you see here, navigator. And there you see that again, this is a default for Power BI. Power BI is referring to the last step, which in this case is this specific data set here, the columns we have. So the date column in the close, and it's naming this data set simply as data set. This holds all the data which is coming from the last step. So removing the column since was the last step. And we can now work on this data. And we can write any kind of Python code you want. Or you write your Python code in your preferred editor and then simply paste it inside. That works the same way. So if I say, for instance, I want to create a new column, so let's say dataset. And from the dataset column, I put it in brackets here. The new column should be, let's say, I named this PCT change like that. And put it in quotes and then I close it. It's equal to, so it's equal to. And I say dataset, referring to my close column. So close also. And quotes and say .pct_change. OK. This is an easy function which is available in Python, which simply calculates the percentage change regarding one specific call row, in this case, let's say row number 2 versus row number 1. So where's the prior column? And then simply wrote, I will write this person that's changing a new column and we name this column as PCT_change. And if you click OK, you see that now you get this little warning here. Information is required about data privacy because it might be a data leakage depending on what kind of pictures of Python you use and so on. But for me now, I simply go to continue and say that's totally fine. I'd like to ignore this. I use my Python, that's also fine, and I click on save. If you want to have additional information read through it just in case you get any issues here. But normally that you should be good to go simply by ignoring this and go to the next step. Now if you have done this, you see that the Python script run and you get two new columns here, which is data set as well as table. So if you click, not on the table itself, click next to the table. If you click here in the blank space, take this option. Then you should see down there, and it can make it bigger, a preview of your data set. And you see here you got the date column, you got the close. And you got also the person that's changed. So you can see here, it was here 5%. Here was it almost 1% and so on. So basically it's calculated by simply dividing the current value by the previous value and subtracting 1. That's how that works. Now this was just a simple script, but the idea was really just to show you how easy it is to actually use your scripts in Python in Power BI. So we have calculated this person has changed. And now of course if you want to now get a table back, all you need to do is you click on the two arrows here. You can take this option. Then you can see here the columns, which is date, close and person change. You can specify, do you want to keep all the columns from the table? Or do you want to remove some of them and you untick them? And I would always untick this use original column's name as prefix. Because I only want to keep the column name state close and person change. I don't need value.date or value.close and so on. I don't need this value name. So I untick this use original column name as prefix. And I click OK. And now you see we got here the name of the data set, which is data set. We got the date here, the close as well as the person change. And this seems fine for me. And of course then I can simply go inside here. I can change here the data type. So I could say here again, I'm referring to local using local as option. And say this here is a decimal number from us type. So just want to make sure that this works properly for me. For you, as I said before, depending on your regional settings, it might not be an issue in any case. And probably as picking this up as a decimal numbers, if you simply change the data type or it's changed automatically for you. That's totally fine. If not, go with the using local option. And here I'm say, I'd like to go with us. So if I go to English, US, United States here. I take this option, I click OK. And I will get here my personal numbers. And of course, I'm now here because there is no prior value on which we can calculate here the difference. And I will do the same here for the close. I go on here and say I'd like to use using local just to make sure that this actually is a decimal number here, which is the price. And I go on referring to English. And I know for a fact that this is US format, so this will work with United States. Might also work with other kind of formatting here, which can apply. Click OK. And you see that this also now the close is a decimal number. So that's fine. That's exactly what I want. And for the date, I can click this option here and I will use here convert this into a date format. So I click on date. And I can also see that this date was picked up correctly. Just in case it does not, again go in here and using this using local option. Okay, so I got my date. I get my close and I got my personal change and I can do additional well transformations. I can do filtering if I want. So let's say I'm interested in all the days for the stock price where the passage change was pretty big. So let's say above or below 4% could go under this option here. If the down arrow, they can go to number filters and say between. Then I can specify here is greater or equal. In my case, I say 0, 0, 5 or reset 4. So it can't turn 4 greater or equal to 4 or is less than or equal to, let's say, minus 0, 0, 4. And as I said, for you, it might be that you put in a dot here. And in this case, I don't want to go with the end. I would like to take all here, right? Because only one of the criteria must be met. Otherwise, I get an empty table. And if I click OK, to filter the data, now you can see that these were the specific days in the data. Well, the time period we analyzed and we can see those were the days where the stock price either changed more than 4% or fell more than 4%. I finally can, of course, get rid of my name column, which I don't need. I can remove it. And I got here my filter data. And if I want to keep it this way, I can simply go to Home, click on Close and apply and load this data into my model. So I can click this option here, just wait until the transformation gets applied. Also, the Python transformation, which we used gets applied. The data gets loaded inside in here. And then it's available. We can see there is our Apple table and I got all these columns and I can create any kind of realization on top of it. If you take a look at the data, just finally go in here, go to the Apple, and you can see here your filter data frame, which can use, right? So that's it actually for applying Python transformations within the query editor. Here in this example, we used a quite basic transformation. I know that, but the idea really was only to show you how you can use all the transformations and also more advanced transformations you might have in mind. Pretty easy to apply. Simply refer to dataset, which is the name of the data frame. And then you can do any kind of transformation you want using Python code instead of using M code with here in the PowerCard editor or the default transformation. So just in case what you want to do is not available by default, Python could be a way to go. Okay. So that's it for this video. Hopefully that was interesting to you and hopefully you can apply this in your own Power Report. As always, thanks a lot for watching and I can't wait to see you in the next video. Until then, thanks guys. Thanks.